Hey guys, my name is Ashley Hum, and I'm here today to tell you about both myself and about public speaking. So who am I? I'm a 15-year-old sophomore at George Washington University Online High School. I'm also a bookworm. I read almost anything. I particularly like sci-fi, fantasy, and crime fiction. I'm currently on a Ray Bradbury kick. For instance, I just read The Illustrated Man, and The Exiles is the best short story ever. It's about authors on Mars, which sounds a bit far-fetched, but trust me, it's amazing. I also like classics, such as To Kill a Mockingbird, which we read in literature last year. I'm still mostly in young adult fiction, although I like certain adult books like Stephen King. Writing and reading often go hand in hand, so as such, being a reader, I'm also a writer. When I was younger, I would used to write anything. I would write grocery lists, I would write down the names of cashiers, and when I was in middle school, I read Harriet the Spy, which is written by Louise Fitzhugh, and that inspired me to write my own spy notebooks. The air quotes are because I had nowhere to go to spy on anybody. So mostly it was stuff that I'd done that day, or I drew cool pictures. I was a horrible artist. But today I mostly write poetry, because I like to document my life in free verse, since I find it more flexible than prose. Last year I also did National Novel Writing Month, which is where you write 50,000 words in 30 days. I didn't even get to the halfway mark of 50,000, but I had a great experience and got all my ideas down on paper, so I was really happy about that. I recently began a blog called Quirky Human for a program that I'm doing in July through George Mason University. It's called Washington Journalism and Media Conference. I figured I'd get some experience now before the summer so that I would be prepared. I post things like poetry, reviews, and anything that comes to my mind. I live in Perryville, Maryland, which is around the top of the Chesapeake Bay, if you're looking at a map, with my parents, my little brother, and 2 dwarf hamsters. There is not much to do in this town except leave it or go to the library, which is where I spend most of my time anyway. The library will come into play later. So why am I here? Why am I in public speaking? Well, for one thing, I'm in Civil Air Patrol, which is the civilian auxiliary of the Air Force, and most of the members are cadets who are aged 12 to 21. I've been here for 3 years, ever since I was 12, and almost straight away I was thrown into a leadership position known as the element leader, which is where you're in charge of 2 or 3 cadets, you make sure they get to meetings, and if not, you ask them why, stuff like that. Slowly I worked up through the ranks from element leader to flight sergeant to flight commander to where I am now, which is deputy cadet commander of the squadron. As one of the more higher-ranking cadets in a leadership position, I get called upon to talk a lot. I teach a character development class I teach it every month. And also, just about every week, I get called upon to informally explain things like drill or uniforms or just basic things about the cadet program. My goals for being in Civil Air Patrol, being a speaker, are to be effective. What use is having all this knowledge accumulated over 3 years if I can't communicate it to the cadets? If I'm standing there trying to teach a cadet how to do a right face, which is a very simple maneuver, and I'm just standing there going, well, you do kind of this, and then you do that, and do you understand? It won't be any help to them, and it won't be any help to me as a communicator. I want to be effective so I can teach my cadets. There's also this thing called Legislative Day, which is where cadets from all over the country go to Congress and appeal to them as telling them what the Civil Air Patrol is, why they should donate money to it, what they've done with money donated in the past. I want to be able to go to this and explain myself and Civil Air Patrol clearly without making either of us look bad. Another reason I'm in public speaking is because of the library book club. I already told you that I live practically all my life at the library, and as such, I've been in book clubs since early middle school. Again, I want to express myself clearly. I have opinions on these awesome books that we're reading, but if I can't explain it, then it's no use. And in general life, public speaking is everywhere. It makes you seem like you know what you're doing. If you have good communication skills, you can stall without saying while you get your thoughts together. I learned this through all the impromptu speaking classes we've had at Civil Air Patrol. Public speaking is everywhere, and it's just going to get worse throughout the later years of high school and in college. I'd rather perfect this technique rather sooner than later. So, Civil Air Patrol and the library are what I want to improve for, and those are my 2 main public speaking engagements. In Civil Air Patrol, like I've told you, I've done a couple of classes, lots of informal instruction, and in the library I've been expressing my opinions on books for years. So my goals for this class are to not get too flustered while I'm talking. A lot of the times I'm super hyper and talk really fast and move my hands around and flail around and nobody can understand me at all. So I want to just calm down and be more confident, because when I'm hyper, that just means I'm nervous. And on the flip side, I don't want to be completely monotone and boring like a robot, because then everybody's going to fall asleep. This happens when I'm trying too hard to not be hyper. That having been said, I still want to be expressive. I notice I move my hands around a lot. A lot of the times it's subconsciously, but I want to be able to use my hand movements to a more effective point to illustrate important points like this. I also want to slow down when I talk. This ties back into being monotone, being hyper. I talk really fast on a normal basis, and my mom often tells me to actually slow down, go back. What were you saying? Overall, I just want to be a more effective communicator, using both words and nonverbal cues to my advantage. Finally, a note on feedback. When you're giving me feedback, be honest. Don't be afraid to point out what I've done wrong. Don't be afraid to point out flaws. I know I feel pretty awkward pointing out, oh yeah, your background's distracting or whatever. But when you do this, be constructive. Don't just say I was terrible. Tell me why I was terrible. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to improve. And if you have an idea or opinion on how I can improve, by all means, tell me. I won't be offended. I might even do it. I'll do the same for you guys. If I see something wrong, I'll tell you. To the best of my ability, I'll tell you how to fix it. You don't have to do this, but if it's helpful, then great. Just remember that nobody's perfect, and like Alexandra said in the discussion, if they're told they're perfect, they're never going to get better. They're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again because people have always told them that it's great. Finally, I think this course is going to be a lot of fun, especially because the uniqueness of this online environment. We get to use webcams and headphones and speakers and cool stuff like that. But don't forget, this is for public speaking in person. So while YouTube videos are great, I think we should take advantage of the live presentations that Mrs. Brownlow's offered us. We should go into Class Connects ready to give our speech and just give it to you on the spot. It's more realistic that way, more reminiscent of an actual presentation, rather than being a dozen retakes of a video until it's perfect. For instance, I know this is my second retake, but that's because I had something really distracting in the background when I was on the other side of the room. So in closing, I look forward to getting to know all of you, all my classmates, whoever you are. I look forward to getting to know you and growing together as public speakers. Until the next speech, this is Ashley Hum, signing off.